some volume. So, I mean, I can sense where everybody's kind of leaning when they look at these things, but for the fun of it, we put in a better, worse, option 1, option 2, reduce out-of-area traffic volumes, 1 highly effective, risk of neighborhood resident confusion, less confusing, risk of out-of-area driver confusion, less confusing for us, risk traffic calming method could be defeated by GPS, impossible, more susceptible, north and westbound access, okay. 2, could create a safety concern because of cheaters, right? So that's what a Jersey barrier looks like. That's what a cul-de-sac looks like, though we can make a bigger, maybe make a bigger parkette, could look nicer. We can maybe even get Whole Foods to contribute to one of them. You can tell I like the Whole Food salads. If you haven't visited, they're wonderful. Anyway, so South Leaside also gets benefit out of this. Remember that Bayview queue jumping? Well, that's we're gonna kill that dead in its tracks. They're not gonna want to go into the neighborhood because they can't get through, right? It's no use popping up at Rumsey and Eglinton. So we're helping South. We're certainly helping our neighboring wards. Broadway, the condition of Broadway west of Bayview is going to change entirely. Not entirely, but a lot of traffic that would otherwise choose to go through. What happens when you do this kind of blockage with the green space is that cars divert out of the area. They don't try to break through the area anymore. They move away. They find another path. Okay, that works for us. One last piece, another complicated side, but worth considering. So you remember North Leaside right here, and down here is Bennington Heights. Now, it was interesting, after a while we looked at it and we thought, wow, okay, there's some interesting similarities here. Bennington Heights has 3 natural blockages and only access to one side. We have 2 natural blockages and access to 2 sides. But option 1 is proposing basically removing access from this side. So we're going to start to look like Benny Heights. We're 4 times the size. They have no sidewalks. We have sidewalks. 1 arterial road, but if we got rid of one, right, the access point, they had 4 vehicular accidents over the same 11-year period. We had 24 total accidents. Sorry, that's total. They had no pedestrian or cyclist accidents, none. So even if we gross this up by 4, maybe our vehicles will look the same. I mean, this is not a guarantee, right? We're just kind of looking at it. And we had 6 pedestrian and 2 cyclist accidents, but maybe that'll go to 0 if we remove all that traffic. So we just thought that was an interesting piece. In addition, car, pedestrian, cyclist, we're not saying all of these are involved with cars trying to cross, but some of them are. So what else did we consider? You can tell we were pretty thorough, huh? Well, remember Moore Park, right? So Moore Park, for those of you who have been in this part of the city for a long time, used to have a tremendous problem where cars would come down Moore Avenue, cross Mount Pleasant, cut through the neighborhood, and make their way down St. Clair. It was a massive problem. And in the 70s, they got together and had the same kind of discussion we're having. It's precedent, right? And they set up 2 diverters. Remember those diverters that cut across diagonally on an intersection? And their traffic has gone to 0. They have no transient traffic. Drive there if you're curious, right? You have time to figure this out. Take a little drive and take a look. You won't be able to get through, but you'll see how quiet the neighborhood is. So we looked at that example. We tried to create one here. It's hard. We rejected this. We rejected it because, 1, it creates huge problems for being able to bring kids into the school on the Kiss and Ride program. So it interferes with lots of parents with children trying to create a system that keeps kids safe. It interferes with school bus deliveries. We also didn't want to get into the argument from residents about who lives on what side of the Great Divide, right? That in of itself is divisive. With option 1, we're all in the same boat. We all suffer the same consequences. We all get the same benefits. This creates divides, so we rejected it. There are other ways you can split the neighborhood. They're worse than this. This is the best of the group. The other thing we looked at the 1991 maze proposal. So the LPOA did a lot of work and put out a whole maze for the neighborhood. There's some things we didn't like in the maze, and we took them out. That's why it says adjusted original. It ran the traffic past the school. That was not a good thing. So we tried to make a maze work. And when you look at this, you can see how confusing it is. And all of those issues of confusion that we've brought up before, it's not simple. It's expensive. And by the way, creating cul-de-sacs in the center of the neighborhood is really hard stuff to do. Really hard stuff. I won't get into the details. Trust me, we rejected it. Other things that were brought up, removing the stop signs, yeah, not a good idea. Adjust turn restrictions so that they're a little bit longer. You know, that no one's following it. So if they're not following the rules, then we kind of have to be a little bit more definitive about what we want traffic to do. Parking restrictions. Well, you saw what happened to speeding when the parking restrictions are there. Make all streets 30 kilometers an hour. Look, we know the LPOA is discussing something like this. There's a compliance challenge there. How do you enforce it? And that needs to be thought about. And there are some potential technological things in the future, but there's a lot of complication there. That's all still in the, right now, just being turned into law, if it becomes law. And right now it's focused on school zones, not entirely the neighborhood. So we're not sure how that'll all work. But that's not to say that we can't have it, right? Let's start with dealing with the volume. Let's go back with those tubes, figure out if we still have a speeding problem. By the way, if it's a speeding problem, it's all of us, right? So we can go figure that out. Maybe we'll set up a Facebook page that shames people who are driving badly in the neighborhood. Special privileges. Some people asked, I'd like to turn right when the rest of the city can't. You know, obviously, can't do that. And gating and bollards, for obvious reasons, can't do that. So, sorry, glasses are popping off my nose. So we did put this through all the city services departments, because rightly so, you should be concerned about how services are delivered. That means everything from garbage collection to fire and everything else. We ran both of these plans past them as well as transportation. And we got a, let's call it an approval in principle or not a negative. And basically what their view is, if the community wants this and the councillor wants this, then they can see their way to supporting it, and they'll find a way to make it work so that their levels of service are not compromised unacceptably. So where are we in this whole process? What happens next? What happens next is so you are here. We get any fresh ideas, so we're handing out a survey, which is going to come up in a few minutes. That survey will also be available to the broader community through the council's website. We're going to fill that out. We're going to pull in that information. Critically, question number 7 on the survey is, do you like option 1, do you like option 2, or do you like neither? And we're hoping that we're going to see some confluence of ideas that are going to settle in on an option and give us direction, right? And from that point on, a lot of different things can happen. If we all solidify around an idea, we present that to the councillor, we represent that to the Transportation Services Department. They will have been aware of those conversations, and they do their work and machinations and do all the checks and boxes. Then that thing goes to Community Council, has to pass North York Community Councils. There's a whole bunch of other councils that have to be able to have their say. And once that gets done, the budget process. And then it happens. Good news is Jersey barriers don't cost anything, right? The bigger stuff, second vote, that has some expense. But it's not unmanageable or unreasonable, particularly with the 100% certainty of effects. So think about it. This is the way we looked at the traffic problem, and this is what we saw based on hard facts and not opinions. It's not an easy decision, but we get benefits for it. And finally, we got to thank city services departments, the councillor, his staff. Believe me, to get all that stuff, there are 1,500 line spreadsheets, multiple of them, sitting behind some of that data that you've seen summarized. We've pestered them for sure weekly, in many cases daily, for weeks on end. And city services and transportation have been awesome. They're even sitting here listening to our presentation, our representatives for this community. So that's our thoughts. We're going to move to Q&A at this point. Councilor staff is going to be handing out those surveys. Along with the surveys, we'll include a printout of both of those options so you can take them home, show your significant other, think about them, and it'll all be available on the website as well. Thank you very much. Thank you. So the Q&A is there's a microphone set up. Just please line up, and we'll try to do as usual with town halls, 1 question per person.
Yeah.
And the surveys are being handed out.
So, thanks very much for that.
Pleasure.
Did I so to do the blocking on Broadway, Glenvale?
Yep, the cul-de-sac.
Just on the cul-de-sac on a temporary measure. Do we need to vote for that to
Yes.
approve it?
We need to vote it.
Could we not just try it out first?
Transportation Services doesn't work that way. We will be temporary, but we all have to vote it to be temporary. Welcome to democracy. That's what happens. We all have to vote that in, even if it's a temporary basis. This is bylaw stuff. It's not about maybe.
And what type of vote is needed?
So everybody, this is pretty important, and this talks to the unity questions. It's a great question. When we vote on this stuff, 60% of our community must have voted, right? So those 1,400 households, and 50% plus one must be in favor. So we're going to email you. The vote's not going to come as a surprise. You'll hear that, and we still got the survey run, iterations to do. So you'll know it's coming, but we need to unify, and we need to all vote, get the vote out. I mean, knock on your neighbors' doors, make everybody aware. We can't tell you how hard it is to get this message out to the entire community.
If I could ask one more question, I think that's a great idea just from listening to it. I'm just wondering, can Eglinton handle the traffic? Has there been?
Look, remember the traffic's going to divert away from the area as well. So in the initial 2-3 weeks, it's going to be mayhem. But then people will figure out and move away. Just like people were loading up Broadway and Eglinton was empty in many cases because they're used to driving that way, they'll get out of their habits and find a new path.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding people that will no longer be able to turn from Bayview onto Broadway, Glenvale, Craig. Have you spoken to traffic services to allow people to make a left-hand turn off of Eglinton onto North Leaside during rush hour?
So maybe more specifically?
So I'm coming up from the Bay and Bloor area.
Yeah.
I take the Bayview extension up. I take that up to Bayview and Eglinton. I make a right-hand turn onto Eglinton. I now want to get into either Hannah, Rumsey, Sutherland, Donavon.
Okay, so there are a total of 11 intersections in and out of the neighborhood, and we're talking about cul-de-sacs on 3 of them, which leave you 8 along the length of Eglinton. And of those 8, 4 of them are signalized. So listen, it's always something. Transportation is here. If you write that on the survey, we can bring it up as a point. I don't know how you're allowed to make a left on all of those.
I'm just concerned with them redesigning Eglinton, that they take that right away from us.
Oh, as far as we know, they're not going to remove the ability to turn into the neighborhood on the redesign. And by the way, the redesign of Eglinton is years away, like 5. But yeah, that wouldn't get past anybody. No.
Okay,
we're not going to reduce access.
Thank you.
John.
Just a question about the EMS access.
Yes.
If we go with option 1.
Yes.
Can EMS get through to Kilgore at the top of?
It's a great question, and thank you for asking it. So we've actually spoken with both Bloorview and Toronto Rehab. Those booms that John is talking about at the top of Rumsey Road and separating from Kilgore, that's actually on private land. It's managed by those 2 hospitals. There are several ways to get through. You can hit a buzzer. You can visually get seen from someone who's manning it, and they open up the gate. EMS is aware of it. In fact, the director that was at our meeting when we were discussing with paramedic services used to work at Bloorview. So he's fully aware that not only can these vehicles go up through Rumsey and turn onto Kilgore, which in reality is quicker than almost anything else anyways, or they can go over that cul-de-sac as it gets designed going there. So there's 2 pathways, and there was very little concern expressed to us by paramedic services.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, John. Great presentation, actually.
Thank you.
I think that it's very thorough. You really show the understanding of the traffic in the neighborhood, and much appreciated for transferring that information. I do believe, and I strongly suggest, that the type of solutions you look into it. I'm just saying that the type of solutions that you are trying to implement be looked by professionals these have great implications in terms of the quality of life, in terms of safety. For instance, putting cul-de-sacs, you really literally are almost indicating a gated community. It's almost like that because you eliminate penetrations. These are studies that have been done. They are not exclusive of this neighborhood. There are many neighborhoods in Toronto that have gone exactly through the same thing, the same intensification, the same school idea of being in the center of the neighborhood. Quite frankly, the majority of Toronto is designed that way.
So to allay your fears, just to let you know, there is no way that transportation just takes what we said and implements. Transportation, to your point about wanting professionals to look at it, they are the professionals.
Thanks for the clarification. I don't mean only transportation engineers onto this. I'm looking at urban designers, particularly urban designers, and the city planning on this. I think that you have to incorporate a greater group of professionals because this is what they do.
We have a planning professional that has reviewed it, that sits with transportation. So I'm sorry, I'm just hitting each one of what you're bringing up. So there's nothing that's being done in a vacuum here. And by the way the bylaw system is set up, it can't be done in a vacuum.
Okay.
Period.
Because my last point is particularly to those the so-called cul-de-sacs.
Yes.
Is that you eliminate, especially for emergency vehicles, you eliminate the access to them, in and out. That is something to look for.
That's not right. We're not eliminating access to them. It's called a high curb cul-de-sac, and those vehicles, because of their high wheelbase, can drive over them. Again,
well, not in a barrier that you put the temporary barrier.
The temporary barriers are being designed in such a way to allow that. It's how you set them up. So both configurations have been brought. Again, to allay your fears, those departments take this stuff really seriously. By those departments, I mean transportation planning, fire, EMS, police. They take all this stuff seriously. They won't provide a provisional okay if they can't manage their service levels. We went through that. That's what took us. We've been at this for 2.5 years, right, or almost. That's what's taken us the time, setting up these meetings, meeting with people.
Fair enough. So if it has been done that way, I think that in the implementation, the same way the research was done about the traffic and so on, there is incredible research and designs that have worked and have been proven within the city that can help alleviate this. So I just put it on the table and perhaps you can look into it.
Thank you.
One thing that I don't see much talk about is the projected pedestrian traffic that is going to be within North Leaside as well as going in and out of North Leaside.
Right.
Specifically, for instance, all the people who want to go to the LRT from western North Leaside are going to have to cross at Bayview and Eglinton.
Right here.
And that's a fairly dangerous intersection based on past experience. The pedestrians are going to go across as they arrive. So when they're going to cross, cars are not able to make right-hand turns in many cases.
Correct.
That means we're going to get back up on Eglinton.
Correct.
Caused by the pedestrians.
Correct.
And specifically because there's no entrance to the LRT from the northeast corner of the intersection.
Correct.
Now, if they had a simple stairway entrance, for instance, then a lot of that pedestrian traffic would be going directly into the LRT station and not crossing Eglinton. And I could see, especially when they have the tower going up there, that you'll have almost continuous flow of pedestrians going across that intersection. No cars are going to be able to make a right-hand turn.
So you're making a great point, which is that pedestrians will impact that intersection. And what happens if we don't do something like this? Well, you've seen it, I'm sure, that even now, as we back up on Eglinton, as soon as cars hit the tailback on their way to Bayview, they cut into the neighborhood to cut the Bayview and Eglinton intersection. So as those new incremental pedestrians arrive at that corner like you're talking about, if we don't do something about this, we're only going to get more infiltration. That's kind of one of the big aspects of our presentation, is that you think it's bad now, new residents and the interactions of all that traffic traffic are going to make it even worse. Now, one other piece that we'd like to add. You'll note that we didn't make any recommendations about Eglinton Avenue East itself. That is a whole different ball of wax. Firstly, they're redesigning all of it as part of Eglinton Connects. Remember that sort of bicycle lanes and things like that? We don't ultimately know how that's going to land, so it's a little bit difficult for us to come to all of you in an already incredibly complex presentation and start talking about what's happening if, then, else with Eglinton, right? Secondly, anything that happens on Eglinton, as opposed to being a community council decision, is a city council decision, meaning 44 councillors as opposed to, I think there are 10 or 12 in the North York Community Council. So it is a much, much harder thing to do. So quite frankly, because of all that movement on Eglinton, we've stayed away from it. The way we're choosing to think about this is that iterative concept, right? Get the foundations down, get the infiltration out, and let's manage all of the other pieces on a go-forward basis, because those will be easier to manage with all our new residents who otherwise wouldn't vote it in. Let's say we're picking the thing that is the least likely to get voted by our new 10,000 neighbors. You with me?
So you're not trying to deal with the pedestrians at all at this point?
With Bayview and Eglinton intersection, we're not touching it at this moment because there's so much change that's coming to that intersection, and it's way too hard to if then else kind of figure out how to deal with it.
Yeah, and so just thinking of what I could do, I go northbound on Bayview quite
Yes.
often. And so you want me to come down Besborough, I guess, try to make a right-hand turn on Eglinton.
A right and a right. That's right.
And then right on the, but then when I get to Bayview, the pedestrians are preventing
Right.
cars from turning.
So we have an alternative for you to consider here. Leslie?
I want to go up to Bayview and Shepherd.
Right. So maybe it's not the most direct route, but hear me out for a second. And it's just a thought. Not trying to, everybody has to evaluate this in their own personal context, right? But we want to just give you a few thoughts. If you remove all of that infiltration traffic, getting out at Brencliffe is now less of an issue because all those infiltration cars, those 8,000 infiltration cars, aren't there anymore. Leslie is a 60-kilometer-an-hour road. Bayview's a 50-kilometer-an-hour road. Leslie has less traffic than Bayview. Even if you're kind of doing it a little bit more indirectly, it's going to be quicker because you're going around that side. Those will be choices for someone like yourself who likes to go, who has a need to go north on Bayview for that point. But Leslie does actually work as an alternative because you can get out of the neighborhood quickly. It's the wrong direction for a short period of time, but you're probably making time on the north-south leg.
Okay. One of the other aspects about trying to go via Leslie is that there's going to be an LRT stop at the surface right at the intersection, or more or less at the intersection.
Yeah.
And so you'll have pedestrians going to and from that LRT station.
Good point. Good point. You were talking about a right and a right at the Bayview and Eglinton intersection, and that does have a lot of merit in terms of pedestrians. When you come up to Leslie, you're making a left, so it's very likely that pedestrians won't be interfering with your ability. Right when you approach Leslie now, pedestrians can't cross as you're turning up northbound from Eglinton to Leslie, right? So even with the LRT, they're going to be kept out of that. Right? Do you see? I can't tell you that for sure, but that's the view. It's less of this is not really a left-hand turn issue. It's a right-hand turn thing that you need to think about. And you were on track, but we think that everything will be inside the neighborhood will be sufficiently mitigated that you're not going to see a huge increase in your commute time.
Okay. I still think there's a significant problem of traffic. The traffic capacity of the westbound Eglinton is going to be possibly significantly impacted by all the pedestrians trying to get to the subway.
Maybe. It's something to consider.
And so adding more traffic that way is just going to make things worse.
Something to consider. Thanks for your thoughts. Make sure you note it down on your survey.
First, as a Glenvale resident living near the Bayview side, I'd simply like to say I never thought anyone was paying attention to what was going on, aside from complaining in our neighborhood. So thank you to our councillor and all the staff, city staff, and everybody who volunteered and put time in. You've done a wonderful job in putting a measurement to the frustration that most of us couldn't do any greater description of, except to stand at the curb and complain about the cars, bumper to bumper, day in, day out, trying to get out of our street. I like option one.
You're welcome.
Okay? Option one has, I think, a clear sense of fixing the aggravation for us, the residents and taxpayers. What worries me a little bit are just two things. I'm not sure your assumption of this traffic will dissipate and find another route, when I think there's a dwindling number of acceptable routes in Toronto for traffic to dissipate to.
You're right.
Over time. Okay, and our geography is our advantage and our weakness in terms of what's coming in our neighborhood.
Yep.
The other feature is I'm not comfortable yet in understanding whether or not I'm going to get back to some reasonable access to this community, because we have a key advantage. We are a great neighborhood. Virtually all of our services and needs can be met within Leaside.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to go to Yorkdale, right? We have everything probably here we need 99.9% of the time. The other excursions we can take at our leisure.
Yep.
Right now, we can't even get to enjoy the flexibility of getting to some of those spots, which are a 3-minute drive and now a 20-minute drive.
Yeah.
Okay? So I'm not sure that the solution proposed answers that question of, can we be assured through expert experience and the studies that have been done that in fact a significant portion of the through-bound traffic is going? Because I'm not sure they're just passing through. I think they're going to the new destinations that are between Bayview and Yonge. I think that some of the traffic coming across, at least from our easterly friends, is heading to a location, center of the city, where they have their businesses and they've established other parts of their lives. So they're not going to Etobicoke, but they're sitting now in the north city center.
Yep.
Okay? So I'm just curious as to whether or not we need an evaluation of that particular piece.
Well, that a little bit of the try before you buy is going to give us a sense of that kind of thing. We can't will traffic away. Right. So people will drive according to how they can move forward, right? Very little we can guarantee on that front. What we can guarantee is not doing this, it's going to get worse on the interior of the neighborhood. And that's the part because that has the safety, the kids, the people, all the pieces that go with it.
I see that in option one. The other feature of option one, there's just two things I'll just make comment on. Number one, the current parking arrangements on Glenvale, as much as one might say it causes traffic to slow down because you can't get through, okay? As I look down the street, neither can the ambulance transportation get through.
So that Kilgore,
right
yes,
now,
you're right, it interferes.
They can't. Neither can the fire trucks get through. Now, fortunately, we don't have a lot of runs, but it doesn't take a lot of runs to have a real serious problem.
That makes a case to put those cul-de-sacs in, because when you remove all of that backed up traffic, the city services can actually get through our neighborhood quicker.
I'm simply saying the parking arrangements that are existing now actually aggravate our traffic because they're allowed to park now on both sides of the streets, and a lot of those are patients attending and or employees of the two facilities.
We read about a lot of that.
The only thing I think you're missing, and I hate to throw a wrench into it, I think there has to be a greater look at how this solution works with Kilgore.
Those are the phases that we're talking
Fair
about.
enough.
We will look at those.
But that gateway of Kilgore could serve the community in terms of access. Let me just offer that as just as a cloud in the sky.
That's a little bit like allowing us to make illegal right-hand turns, but nobody else. Either we're all transportation is clear about this. We're all in the same boat, or we're not.
I get it, but the way we currently have it is for me to get to the two facilities I have to get to. Those are the turns I make because right now I pack a lunch to go to Eglinton and come back the other way.
I understand.
So what I'm saying is, you go down. The current arrangement is if you go south and make the turns, you're an awful long time getting to a place that would take you 3.5 minutes to drive to. So that's not helpful. We got to at least recognize that happens. Okay.
Thank you.
But quality work, and I think that's my only concern is the visionary piece is sort of there's your best guesstimates of the shoulder consequences of this, but you get my vote for option one.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you to all the people.
Thanks for the comments.
Hi, I live on Glenvale, and I travel to Bayview and Lawrence every morning.
Yes.
So as much as I like the idea of preventing traffic coming into the internal neighborhood, but with option one, then I'm losing my ability to go on to Bayview North. So my question is, for option one, is it possible to put the cul-de-sac on the entrance, meaning that let's say you have on Bayview, you just put it on one side of of the lanes so that they cannot enter into the neighborhood, but you can still get out.
So
Same thing on Eglinton. You put it onto let's say Sutherland, so that they can go into the neighborhood, but people can still come out.
We consider that as an alternative, and the unfortunate thing, if you sort of really go through and think all the dynamics of it, first of all, it's very hard to break cheaters, and we know that drivers are behaving badly. So you create, so you know that Rumsey southbound at Eglinton has one side blocked. Have you seen that? We've seen cars driving the opposite way through that when they see there's an opening. You create that as a condition, people are going to do that, and it creates safety concerns. I feel your pain of what you're talking about in terms of destinations, but to your specific example of what you asked, we did consider it. Further, if you leave any opening, traffic will find a way to infiltrate into it and come through the community. It's bidirectionally that we need to stop that infiltration. So some people, if they have the kind of commute you're talking about, may get hit a little harder out of this than the balance of the community. And it's one of those trade-offs. It's trying to view this with a community hat and think of the other benefits, like your children have less risk of being hurt on their way to school. And those are parts of the trade-off. But we have considered and talked at length about what you've suggested there.
Okay, thank you. But I think if there's any other things that you can try to think of to prevent people to coming into the neighborhood, but give the
ability to get
residents
out
inside the neighborhood the flexibility of getting out from the neighborhood.
Write anything that comes to your mind on your survey, please. There's a comment section.
Okay, thank you.
We read everything, as you saw.
Thank you. Great job,
every
though.
word. Thank you.
Thank you. Good presentation. Lots to digest. I need time to go through it, but I'm still not clear about what you're doing about the queue jumpers on from Eglinton. I'm on Don Lee.
Okay. Yes. And I completely understand. So let's quickly go to that slide.
Because at one point you showed lots of arrows, lots of pictures.
Yep.
And they exist. But then you said it really hasn't been documented. So they are definitely jumping the queue.
Yeah. So let's talk about that real quick. So this is what the current proposed vote would be on, right? So people are going to come back and give opinions on this. We created the second part that you're about to see specifically for the folks like yourself that are living on Don Lee, because we identified that as a traffic flow. We know it's a problem. Here's the issue. Right now on Don Lee, we don't know how many cars on Don Lee are the queue jumping variety that jump in and cross this way, and how many are coming through here and just saying, oh, I'll drive you. How much of this do you see, right? If you spend time in the neighborhood, right? You see a lot of that stuff. We don't know how many are those.
Okay.
So it was easier for transportation to swallow, and we think easier for the neighborhood to swallow, a multi-phased approach, where we start off with this because it's really easy to digest. I mean, you have to think about some things, but you get it, right? And then afterwards, with those tubes and things, we'll measure and figure out whether we still have a traffic problem on Don Lee. And if we do, see this little picture of a diverter here? That's kind of what that would look like. It would start off as a Jersey barrier again in a temporary context. Did we get the, right? Because here you're coming up Laird and you want to go this way. Oh, you can't. Right? Here you're coming up Laird and you want to go this way. Oh, you can't.
Good.
Right?
Oh, I like that. No,
so,
that's good.
So that would be phase two. That's why we talk about a multi-phased approach.
Right.
And that's what that's all about. And this could be done with one ways. There's lots of ways to crack this nut, but let's figure out if we have a nut to crack first.
Right, okay, I like that. I just want, when we look at that, though, I just want to get some idea of timeline. I know there's quite a process going through council and so on.
Great question.
We've got 6 months to 1 year for phase one and 1.5 years for phase two. So is that 3 years? Is that 5 years before?
So let's talk about quickly about that. So survey end date is June 30th. That goes off to the councillor, then goes off, if let's say we all like option one. That goes off to transportation. They start running their checks. They go back to all the city services departments. That goes back to, that package goes to community council. So there's a future community council date. Hard for me to speak how quickly the city's going to do that. They have a docket. I really can't. I don't know their schedule, right? So that's going to happen. That passes, and the temporaries go in. The temporaries sit for 6 months to a year. We action another vote from everybody. Like it, get rid of it. Let's say everybody likes it. Now it's back to transportation. They have to design what the final piece is going to look like. right? And then that has to go back to community council, and that has a budget piece to it, right? And then that has to get approved. But from our perspective, if we like it and we want to keep it, we're going to start to get the benefits from the temporary implementation. So we get that benefit right up, right away, even though it takes a while to go from temporary to permanent.
Right. So for Don Lee, it could be 2 years. We could be looking at queue jumpers for 2 years.
No. We could. So we
From
could.
now?
We could. After we put this in, then within a few months, we're going to be able to get these measurements and figure out what's going on down here. So
Okay,
we
so
could
it'll
have
be-
supplemental measurements come. We'll come back to the community and say, yeah, you know what? We need this. People are busting through John Lee
Okay,
all the
excellent.
time.
So you'll be on it and following up
Yeah,
soon.
we're not
soon.
hanging you out to dry.
Excellent.
We're not hanging you out to dry. I
No, I'm
promise.
sure you're not.
We
I
got
just
a
wanted
we
to
got a
get-
member at Donnelly and Brentcliffe,
Right,
and
I'm
he's vocal.
Right,
So
good.
don't
No,
worry.
I just wanted to get a sense of timeline. Excellent, thank you.
Okay, hi, thanks. I just want to say fantastic presentation. I think you really outlined the issues and definitely agree something needs to get done. So thank you for everyone on the committee because I know it's a lot of work. So you're hearing from the Don Lee contingent because I'm also on Don Lee, but at the other end towards Hannah and Rumsey. And just with this, I mean, if you think about it as a simple triangle in North Leaside, because that's really what it is. If you draw a triangle from like the northwest end of Glenville and Bayview or Broadway and Bayview down to Brentcliffe and Eglinton, that's really what people are trying to do when they cut through. Either get to northwest
right.
or southeast, right?
Yep.
So we're now blocking off all on that west side, that side of the triangle, which is great.
Yep.
My concern is actually for the guy on the committee at Brentcliffe and Don Lee, because there's nothing, you just heard from people in Glenville up there, they need to come down to Eglinton. You're now suggesting people go to Leslie. Guess where they're all going to? Don Lee and Brentcliffe to get to that intersection to go to Leslie. And don't tell me they won't. So that, I mean, I live on Don Lee between Hannah and Rumsey. When they put on speed bumps on Broadway and Glenville, we saw a huge increase in traffic on our street.
Yep.
This, I'm concerned, and I'm glad that you've got the measurements, because that needs to be done at the exact same time.
We will.
Because people might not be able to cut northwest. They are still going to look to cut west. And what's the easiest street? Oh, come up to Don Lee and go west. I've got 3 kids that walk to school, and those are the kids that are walking to school because it's a block away.
Yep. And this is an incredibly
They're
big,
not-
and this is a tough corner.
East-west,
We agree with you.
people are going through stop signs. At Rumsey, at Sutherland, people go through southbound. I've seen cars go through the stop signs southbound because they look at the lights. They're not even looking at the stop signs. So I am seriously concerned. I mean, I love this idea, and I don't know what the answer is, but I am really concerned because everyone here is probably at fault too of our own neighborhood. People are in a rush. And the stuff you see when you're walking the neighborhood in the middle of the day, not even at rush hour, people passing cars because they're going 30 kilometers on Glenville or whatever. It's crazy.
Yep.
So I'm just concerned about the backup that's going to happen at that Brentcliffe
So we're going
Don
to.
Lee intersection, and it's going to go all the way up. It's up Brentcliffe, it's up Don Lee, and the people start passing because they think, well, I don't want to turn right, I want to turn left on Brentcliffe, so they try to pass. And it's like, it's a 2-lane road, what are you doing?
Yeah, I know.
So
Today alone, I saw people driving in the wrong lane right over here when they got backed up and to go on to Bayview.
I think this is a good start. I just think we
disaster.
still need to look at that corner and figure out what to do. And I really would like to see a lot of measurement. There wasn't a measurement at Rumsey and Donnelly, so selfishly, that's the corner that my kids go to school. On the slides, if you can go to the slide with all the pedestrian metrics, where people were getting hit,
Yeah.
that's the one corner there are no metrics on.
Yeah, because we're dependent on whatever was done
I know.
historically, right? So we
So
are.
can we going forward, can we start to get metrics there though? Because that's a big crossing for this school.
We're going to do it.
Okay, thank you. The second thing is, did you consider or talk to Bloorview and the rehab center about not allowing access into the neighborhood? Because I'll tell you, I see a lot of cars at rush hour, like at 3:30, there's traffic. That's not normal people coming out of work. That is people from those facilities cutting through our neighborhood to get out of it. So why can't we force them to go to Bayview and out of our neighborhood?
Yeah.
Did
No,
you
it's
think?
good. It's a good point, and let's watch it again. When you get rid of a very big part of that transient traffic, we're going to have a real crystal clear view of what's left, and things that you're talking about are going to be really apparent, and we're going to measure them and make those cases.
And sorry, my last thing is the only other corner then of the triangle that becomes a huge issue is Bayview and Eglinton.
Yes.
And that's exactly what this gentleman earlier was saying about the pedestrians not being able to turn right. We've now cut off all the traffic that used to cut through the neighborhood going south on Bayview.
Or they're diverting away. Or they're diverting away from the area.
Well,
So you
good
take-
luck with
you-
that one. Or they're coming through Leicester. That's still a major, those cars have to go somewhere. We're telling people you either have to go over to Bayview or over to Leslie. So that corner of the triangle and the other corner of the triangle are going to get more cars.
Yeah.
And so as you do this, I also suggest that we look at Bayview and Eglinton and monitor traffic there and pedestrian traffic there. 2 people have already been killed there. You said it yourself.
I know.
We're going to get more people. We're now putting more cars in that intersection.
Yep.
So as we do this and look to implement it, I also think we need to have people at that intersection.
Write in your survey responses, please, because transportation will see it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I live on Brentcliffe, just south of Glenvale, and we see the Wheel-Trans buses going through all the time, and they go they go west on Glenvale and they turn north on Bayview, all hours of the day. So now you've cut off their access. I've heard that one of the reasons that they go along Glenvale is because all of the drivers don't have the ability to get into onto Kilgore Road through Rumsey. So as just to make it easier for them, of course, they're going to go all the way along Glenvale to Bayview and go north on Bayview, when what they are supposed to do, I understand, is to go north on Rumsey into Kilgore, onto the Kilgore Road, and then across. So that's a huge piece to try to manage for them, just letting you know what it is.
And write it on your survey.
On my
Write
survey,
it in.
okay.
Write it as a comment.
And the Bellwood Institute has just opened, and we've noticed an increase in parking and an increase in traffic going up and down because of Bellwood. And so that's just like Sandra was saying, that just adds to the piece of people coming and going.
Yeah.
That's all. Thanks for
Thanks
all
for
your
the
work.
heads
It's
up.
great.
Please note all that stuff
Okay.
in your survey
you.
comments.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I've been looking at the drawings and the plans and stuff that you've put up there, and I see where I live on Kilgore at 21 Burkebrook, but I feel like we've just had a wall put up between us and you guys, and I feel sort of rejected. It's terrible.
We do love you.
I know
Trust me.
you have to have a plan, but you know you're never going to satisfy everybody.
That's right.
And it's plainly evident from all the people who've spoken that, oh yes, well on my street it's like this, and on my street it's like that. Well, I think we have to stop thinking about why we're so concerned about my street and think about the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what you've been doing.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
We've tried. We've tried to really. That was if you saw the earlier Muzak slides, that was all about wearing a community hat versus your own hat, right? Let's get all in the same boat and figure this out. And it's going to be harder for some, but generally speaking, it's safer for everyone.
Yep.
Thank you for your comment.
So I've just got one final comment on the proposal for one. Right now on Eglinton, as they start to build the tunnels for the station, it's down to 1 lane east and west. And also at the high school, it is down to 1 lane east and west. When are you looking to having this implemented? Because we will lose all of the traffic coming into the neighborhood, which will go back onto the street, and then you will have people within Leaside saying, wait a second, I can't get out of my own community now. I hate this idea, kill it.
So as best as we have dug into Metrolinx in this segment of Eglinton, figures that there's going to be about 1.5 years left of what they call heavy traffic impact, right? So that probably means they're cutting everything down in 1 lane in each direction, and it's going to get less after that. So there's a 1.5 year window. So you know, there's a lot of moving parts there when you try to ask me timeline. That's their window. I've described now before what our survey, vote, community council, budget, and then actual temporary implementation, and then second vote and full implementation. So we're going to try to make those things coincide so that, and we're also going to let people know, don't just like we've communicated to everybody here right now, we can also communicate, don't let sort of a temporary construction thing get your eye off what is the future benefit of what should be happening. That construction will go away. Our infiltration traffic won't. It's going to get worse.
Okay.
Thank you. They told me I had to stand up here, and either I survived or you'd run out of questions. So I'm going to turn it back to the councillor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John, and to the rest of the committee who are in the front row. As I said, and as is evident, there's a lot of work that went into this. So whether the community goes for it or not, thank you very much to all of you. I just wanted to address a couple of questions or a couple of comments, just very specific things regarding the institutions. So Lyndhurst and the Donwoods, their access is through North Leaside primarily. I believe Toronto Rehab and, of course, the Hugh McMillan is through Kilgore. They've been here a long time, so we would have a real difficulty in actually cutting off their access. They were actually probably here before any of us. So that is the challenge. The other thing is to actually cut off their access, you'd have to put a road through from Toronto Rehab to Lyndhurst, and that has been suggested, but it's probably a non-starter. So I just want to give everyone that sort of heads up. And then ultimately, really what this comes down to, and I know there was a gentleman spoke, and he lived on Glenvale, and he said, well, it'd be great for, I believe he said it would be great for the traffic situation, but not for his own personal situation of getting onto Bayview. And that is the ultimate question people will all have to make. No plan is perfect, and what I've learned in the last 3 years, everyone wants perfection, and obviously we strive for that, but what we get is usually a little bit less. So we can't address everything, but irrespective of that fact, the reality is that if we want to make the situation better, there will be some pain potentially. That's just the reality. I think it'll be easier for people to get into South Leaside, to get over to Leslie. I think would be a lot better. And of course, a lot we'll find out if we actually do the trial. But the reality is, when people call me up, and I will get a lot of calls, and I usually enjoy them. Not the same people over and over, but. Actually, they're not even here tonight, so, but this is recorded, so oh well. In any event, the reality is that people will call up and say, I'm going to be inconvenienced, and I'm going to say it's pretty much how it goes. If everyone were obeying the signs, the biggest inconvenience getting northbound to Bayview is during rush hour. I think we can all agree, but if you actually obey the signs, that's an inconvenience right now. So that's a little bit of a reality check. But beyond that is, I can guarantee it is going to be difficult to get up onto Bayview. But do you want less traffic in your neighborhood? And that will be the ultimate decision that you will all have to make. Good night, everybody.